Right. So hello, everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. And I'm so fortunate to be able to have with me today, number one of Big Brother 23, that is juror number one, Britini D'Angelo. Britini, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Oh my gosh, Max, thank you so much for inviting me. Literally, when you sent me the message, I was like, done and done. You know I love you, so I'm so excited to chat with you about this.
So I know you've done 1,000 of these
Yeah,
probably, and I want to make, this podcast different from all the others that you've done.
go for it.
I don't want to ask you the same old questions. So I just want to ask for like just fresh off coming out of the house, what
Okay.
has life been like post BB? What have you been up to? I know you were just in Disney World the past several
Yes.
days. So talk about that, but just talk about sort of an overview of the past few weeks since you've been out of the house. What's life been like?
Yeah, of course. So over the past few weeks, it's honestly just been the process of assimilating back into regular life. I've been talking to and I've seen so many of my friends and family. Obviously, I still live at home currently, so I get to see my lovely parents and family every day, which is exactly what I need right now because I miss them more than I can express in words. But no, we actually had a welcome home party for me about a week and a half ago where a bunch of my family and friends all came. We had like a good gathering, obviously safe and outside because of
Yeah.
COVID restrictions, but we got to have a pretty good sized gathering where everyone was able to come over and just say hi to me, and I was able to see everybody at the same time. But then besides that, yes, I did get to go to Disney World. The trip was planned to see my sister Anna, who's currently a second year law student at the University of Florida. So we went and saw her in Gainesville for the first day, went to Disney for the second and third, and then came back, dropped her off, and we flew out of Gainesville again. But no, Disney was it was magical. Like, how is Disney World not magical? It just is. And so no, it was a great time. Honestly, life post BB it's been great. It's been stressful in some parts trying to
Yeah.
get used to life again, and social media has just definitely been something I've been trying to get used to again. It's also so funny. I got out of the house and I didn't remember what charger my phone used to get charged. So I had to ask an airport attendant to use their charging dock so that I could see which one worked for my phone because I just forgot what my charger looked like. But no, honestly, it's been great. Couldn't have asked for a more supportive welcome home.
Mm-hmm. And I love that, it's obviously, I could only imagine how difficult it is to sort of assimilate back into, the world after being, sequestered from it for a few months. I know that you were kind of one of the first to just I'm leaving, I'm going back home, right after the finale ended, the morning after you were just booked it back home, unlike everyone else in the cast that wanted to stay in LA for a little while. Was it difficult trying to join the world again and sort of know what's happening in the world? Were you a little scared to do that at first because obviously you don't know what's happening in the news or in your day-to-day life? It must be so much different. And I know a lot of the cast probably wanted to stay in LA, have a whole 23.5 season of Big Brother in Todd Rickles' house because they kind of didn't want to get back into the world. They kind of wanted to stay amongst each other for a little while, just because that's what they've been so used to. So was there that level of difficulty of, joining back with, reality?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. There definitely was a fear because obviously my mother's immune compromised. So, and during the entire process of COVID, I have been very reluctant to go places. That's not been my work. I've been trying to stay as safe as possible because my mother doesn't have an immune system, meaning if she gets COVID, she has nothing to fight it.
Mm-hmm.
And so coming out of the house and hearing immediately that COVID got worse, that made it 100% scarier for me because I was like, oh my God, this got worse. You know what I'm saying? But there also was a lot of things about coming back to the real world that I was really excited for, like finding out what happened with the USA gymnastics team, with the Olympics, and being able to obviously see my friends and family and like I said, learn more about the Olympics and that kind of stuff. And then how the Bachelorette ended with Katie's season. I didn't get to see how that ended. Mm-hmm. And then start watching the challenge and Survivor. And there's so many things outside of the world as well that were so exciting. And just how the studio that I teach at locally in Niagara Falls, how they're doing and how my karate school's doing, and how UFEP's doing. There's just so many things that I was so excited to learn about coming out. But no, there definitely was some terrifying things, especially because coming out of the house, you get your phone back. And the first thing I did was call my parents. I didn't look up my name on Google. I didn't look up my name anywhere because I was like, I have no idea what I am perceived as on in the outside world.
Right.
So that definitely took some getting used to as well, that like I do have a public name now, and now at that point people can Google me and search things, and Britini D'Angelo comes up on a Google search, and Big Brother is associated with her. So that has been getting some taking used to, I will say.
And now
like in the best way though.
Yeah, and because you have this public persona now, you are recognized by those that watch the show pretty religiously. Correct. And I know I see on your Instagram story, you would repost every time, fans would recognize you and come up to you, mainly when you were, at Disney. What's that like, having just these strangers come up to you? Weird. This is such a new experience for you.
No, Max, I'm telling you what, it was so crazy for me.
Yeah.
Because like it never really crossed my mind when we were going to Disney that would happen. Gonna be really honest. Then we get in the park, and I remember the first time I was stopped, and then it just kept happening and happening and happening. And I was like, oh my goodness, like the photos that are there are some of the few instances, but like one person would do it, and then another person would see it, then another person. And I was like, hey, everybody. Hi. Like, I'll never forget. Like, I was on Main Street, and this guy was taking our photos. We were wearing our Team Britney shirts on Saturday. Just because that was what my mother and father had planned. And there were like people stopped on my left side, people stopped on my right side, like watching me take photos, and they were like, we gotta go, but congrats on Big Brother. Aww. And I was like, thank you, I love you, smile. So that the photographer like wasn't like in a loop or anything. But no, it was crazy. It was so crazy to just like families coming up to me, and kids and teenagers coming up to me being like, you were either our favorite on the season, or we really loved watching you. You were amazing. We love how authentic and real you were on the season. Like, could not have been more positive in that response. And honestly, to which I'm thankful and grateful for. It was funny too. We were with my family, and my sister comes up to me after one of my like meeting interactions, and she goes, wow, so like my sister's a celebrity now? What? And I was like, no, I'm normal. I swear.
You're basically a celebrity now, Brent.
No. I am very normal. I am no differently normal than I was before.
But that's funny how you said that. Once, a couple of people would come up to you that would, create a little bit of a scene, and then other people would be like, oh, why are people going up to her? Oh, she's, on Big Brother this past year. So it would like gradually, that's how like more and more people would like recognize you, because they would see people
come to the circle,
coming over to you. Yeah. I'd love to know, obviously you'd get a bunch of it at Disney because it's basically asking for it, coming off of like a very popular, reality show, on a major network. But in your day-to-day, I would think, in your hometown, as you're just like walking around or going about your day, you would, encounter people that have watched you over the season. That would be proud of you.
No, it has definitely happened. Walmart, it's happened. Wegmans, it's happened, our like local grocery store. And then I even went in, my Nana needed me to pick up some prescriptions for her because she just had a dental surgery yesterday. And so I went into one of the drugstores here to pick up her prescriptions, and the drugstore people recognized me. They were like, oh my God, it's you. And I was like, hi, hello, nice to meet all of you. But no, they truly couldn't have been more supportive. And then I also started teaching at my local dance studio this past Monday, and like the reception there couldn't have been better as well. Like my boss is super great to like keep my job there, because I knew I wanted to go back and teach. I love my girls at the studio, and I love teaching dance. So I told her, I said, if I'm going to make any commitment, that's the one I'm making. And it's to you. And so, but I am going back to my other jobs. They're like, we're slowly working them all in to order.
That's great.
So like get back into them and stuff like that. But no, it's been very overwhelming in the best way possible, but it's been super cool at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like words can't describe how like your neighbors, your community just had your back all summer long, and is now like so happy to see you now as you're going about your day to day. That's so great to see. I wanted to switch gears now and sort of, we touched on, I'm going out of order. So we touched on your post-BB life, but I now want to start at the very beginning and just go through your decision to apply for the show. Were you always a huge super fan? Were you recruited? Did you just start watching the show very recently? Sort of, what was your background in Big Brother in terms of watching the show? And also what gave you that impetus to apply for the show this year?
Yeah, so I've been a super fan of Big Brother since I was 18. I got hooked to the show with BB16 with the hitmen of Derek and Cody. They were my inspirations and my reason for coming on the show. And I applied in season 22. I ended up becoming a semifinalist. I got cut right before finals. But then BB23 came along. I was in the crux of my master's program, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And so I just applied, and I was like, you know what? I got kind of close the last round. Maybe I'll get closer this time around, and ended up working in my favor. But no, I've been a fan of the show for such a long time. And it's always been one of my dreams, like I said, since I was 18, to play on Big Brother. And that dream got to come through this year, which I'm very, very excited for.
Mm-hmm. And that's similar also to Tiffany, because I know Tiffany applied last season, but obviously it ended up being All-Stars. So it was kind of moot at that point.
Yep. Tiffany, myself, Azza, and Alyssa. And I don't remember if anybody else also applied, but I know the 4 of us did.
Mm-hmm. So can you walk me through sort of what that initial shock was when you got the key? Was that obviously, I know based on talking to you and like so much, other of you guys, you really didn't know up until that point. That was a natural, shock of you receiving the key that day before you were sent into sequester leading up to the premiere. So was it up until then? Was it just like up in the air? Like, I haven't heard back. Like, I don't know, like what's happening this summer. Like, were you planning on still just going about your job or your school because you just didn't know up until that moment? And then just walk me through the feelings that were rushing through your mind.
Yeah.
When
So
that day happened.
It was a whole roller coaster of emotions, because obviously in April, we found out we were top 50.
Mm-hmm.
A month and a half later, it was like end of May, we found out we were top 25. And then we had to fill out some more paperwork, put some more photos in there. And then it came down to like the day before they were coming for my home shoot. And the person who we worked with on our end told me, if they came today, would you be able to leave in 5 minutes? And I said, yeah. And they said, okay, great. See you tomorrow. Bye. And I was like, what? Like, what? What do you mean leave in 5 minutes? And then I will never forget this. I came back in the kitchen that day, and I'm like, yeah, they just asked me if I could pack my suitcase in 5 minutes and leave, would I be able to do it? And I said, yes. And my mom starts crying. My Nana starts crying. My dad starts screaming and jumping up and down. He's like, she's getting up. I mean, obviously I didn't know what it meant, but then my first initial key reveal was at the Niagara Falls. It was that morning around like 7:30 a.m. The Niagara Falls was a monsoon that morning. No wonder they didn't use the footage. But it was a monsoon, and I missed my key 4 times. They put it on the viewfinder, and I missed it. Like looking, I missed it 4 times. And then I finally got it. We're all jumping up and down. We're like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And my mom looks at the producer and goes, what does this mean? And he goes, she's on the show. And then we all just start freaking out. I mean, it was the most organic reaction we could have done. My adrenaline was like on cloud 9 that day. I was all the way up here. But it was so special because my entire family was there when I got it. You know what I'm saying? It was me, mom, dad, Phil, Anna. Like we were all there. We were all soaked and drenched by the monsoon that was happening at the falls, but it couldn't have been more perfect because we all were just freaking out together. It was wonderful.
Right. And after that moment, I mean, in a matter of seconds, you just automatically had to cut yourself off from the world, turn in your phone, say goodbye to your family for a few months.
In an hour. Because after that, because I didn't have to say goodbye to my family after that had happened, because we shot until 2:30 that day.
Okay.
So right when we left the falls, I got back in the car with my handler, and she was like, yep, so here's your phone. You're going to have this drive to text anyone that you need to text in the next 15 minutes. Once this drive is done, I take your phone, and you're not going to see it again until the end of the show. Or if you get evicted before, like in the first 5 people. I said, okay, that's fine. And so they took my phone. We went back to my house. We did all the interviews. We actually had a whole grill scene that wasn't aired for my shoot, where like my entire family started roasting me, saying all these embarrassing moments about me. It was hilarious. My Nana's though was the bomb. And so like, cause my Nana, she's my best friend, but she keeps it real with me always. And so we go through that whole process, and then we go to the karate school. But my family had to stay behind. The only person that was allowed to go to the karate school with me was Phil, because he was my partner. So my mother and my father and my Nana and all of my friends and family are at my house crying their eyes out because they're like, oh my God, I have to leave. Like Brittany's leaving us now. Like we're not going to talk to her. And then Phil had another hour and a half with me. My mother was so jealous. She could not believe it. She like, my mother went to the director and was like, you need to let me go to the karate studio with you guys. And they were like, no, like you can't.
So once you headed to the karate school, that was like goodbye to your family
that was like goodbye.
Well, I want to switch gears now and sort of fast forward over to premiere night. That first moment you were on the stage with Julie, such an out-of-body experience.
Oh my gosh, out-of-body.
Not only that you're on the show that you've watched for several years, but also knowing, I don't know if you had this in your head, but that you were on live, national or worldwide television, being seen by millions.
Yeah.
So many more emotions, I bet, going through your head on that night. But can you just walk me through your first impressions of the 3 other house guests that were standing beside you before you even spoke a word to any of them, just based on, appearances, first impressions of just standing alongside them before entering the house with Alyssa, Aza, and Whitney?
Yes.
What were your first impressions of these girls? Were you sort of sizing them up already in your head, thinking like, oh, okay, who can I work with amongst this group that I'm with?
Yeah, no, it was crazy because they all came out in these gorgeous dresses.
Yeah.
And I come out in this tracksuit pant and a tank top. Yeah. And I'm like, did I miss the memo? Like, I was like, what in the world is this? So I get out there and obviously like, we're not allowed to talk to each other. The first time we were allowed to say a word to each other was once we got in the house, like past the house doors. When we were doing mic check right outside, we weren't allowed to talk to each other. Right when we got on stage, we weren't allowed to talk to each other. Once we entered the house, we were able to say stuff. But no, I mean, they were all stunning. I was like, why are we going in the house in groups of 4? This was my number 1 question. My number 2 question was, oh my goodness, Julie Chen is even more stunning in person. Number 3 thought was, do not trip on national television. And number 4 was, you need to win this HOH. I don't care what happens. But I will say, when I saw Aza, I said, that's my number 1. Mm-hmm. That I will say, that was a instinctual notice of like, that girl's going to be my number 1.
That's interesting.
And that's exactly what happened.
And that instinct proved correct, obviously, in what followed. So it's very interesting that your instinct is absolutely correct. That's awesome.
Yeah. No, Aza just gave me the warmest smile and just the warmest look. And I was like, yep, that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
So you mentioned the HOH competition that followed. Yes. Obviously, you did not win, unfortunately, but Frenchie did, who turned out to be a member of your team, the Jokers. Tell me about, before, I guess, Frenchie won HOH, what were your initial feelings about this team that was sort of decided for you by Frenchie? How did you feel about, Frenchie picking you as opposed to the other team captains? Were you happy that you were in his team alongside Aza and Big D? Just size up this team that you were sort of assigned to be in by him.
Yeah, so, I mean, instinctually, I was so excited. I mean, because that was the first time that my face showed up was for Frenchie to choose me. Mm-hmm. And I was honored that Frenchie chose me right off the bat so that I really wouldn't have to, because that was the first time my face was shown and I got picked the first time I was shown. So I was like, great. And so obviously we're going through the motions and I see my team. I see Oz is on my team. We got Big D, Oz, and me and Frenchie. And I'm like, this team's going to work really well together, which we did work really well together as a team. And I knew that we were going to be fluid in that regard. And I knew that we all wanted to be there. And I felt that from the moment that we all stepped on that stage, that we all genuinely wanted to be there and we all wanted to win and we all wanted to do it for the team. But no, honestly, as the game plays out later on, game wise, teams actually definitely hurt my game. The team twist definitely hurt my game, but do I regret it? Absolutely not, because the teams brought me my family. Teams brought me the Jokers are my family. All 3 of them are family to me,
Yeah. So were you happy that Frenchie chose you right off the bat? Because I know there's always a fear. It's kind of like volleyball. You don't want to be picked last. You don't want to be seen that you're just like this, waste of space or not even like a competitive threat. And obviously you'd think the team captains would choose the strong players first. So were you happy in a sense that you weren't one of the last chosen, that you were picked
my God,
first?
Of course.
Or,
of course.
Were you relieved that it was Frenchie specifically that chose you because you were kind of eyeing him as someone you wanted to work with as opposed to the other 3 team captains? Or was it a combination of both?
Yeah, I would say I was when I entered and walked upstairs after R4 played that HOH comp.
Yeah.
I walked upstairs. Frenchie and I hit it off right off the bat. So I told myself that, look, if Frenchie and I were able to get on a team together or work together in any capacity, I would like that, because Frenchie and I just clicked. Big D and I just clicked. And obviously, like I told you, I had that instinctual notice about Ozza. And so when Frenchie picked me, oh my God, I was over the moon. Not only because I didn't want to get picked last, but also because I was like, you know what, like, this is really cool. Like, Frenchie chose me. He really thinks that I can be an asset to his team. And it also shows me that he does want to work with me in this game as well. So my feelings are being reciprocated by him picking me on the team as well. So it kind of worked both ways.
So let's move now through, let's go beyond premiere night and move through the rest of the week. Because I think possibly, maybe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe those feelings towards Frenchie changed. I know a lot of people have used words to describe Frenchie's reign of HOH as, you know, sort of like a dictatorship or sort of tyrannical. Did you share those similar sentiments that the rest of the house did? Did you kind of have like a face palm moment most of the time, like, Frenchie, what are you doing this week? And but did you also have personal game concerns that this could affect you going, like, obviously you were safe this first week because Frenchie was HOH, but did you have concerns that being associated with Frenchie on the team could affect you going into the following weeks?
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, that was my main concern. Ozza and I, because Big D was always upstairs with Frenchie throughout the entire week. Ozza and I hid in the belt room because we were like, we're safe. We're not getting involved in this. We called it Frenchie's Funhouse because, and absolutely, I was afraid that it was going to affect my game because I was like, in an HOH reign, you're trying to set yourself up for the next HOH week. And all that we're doing now is causing chaos. Like our team can't set up our next week's plan because our team doesn't know what's happening this week. And then obviously once Travis gets backdoor, we still don't know what's happening. Like, obviously we know that Travis is going home, but we have no idea what the week's going forward mean. And we know that Frenchie had a lot of people who were targeting him, and that we knew that that was not going to reflect good on us because we were like, Frenchie's made so many deals at this point that he can't keep. And I love Frenchie, and I know we talked about this, but like, he made so many deals and promises that week that that he could not keep. It just was not possible. He just needed to talk a little bit less and really think through what he wanted to do on the HOH. But no, I mean, that week definitely hurt it hurt all the jokers that week.
His behavior obviously was something that you disapproved of, but who did you want out that week? Were you fine with Travis being the first one out under Frenchie? I would think being on his team, you would want sort of to express your opinion on who you thought would be the first to go.
Yeah,
so what did you think about Frenchie's plan to get Travis out eventually?
I mean, in terms of a game move, I did not have a game relationship with Travis, so him leaving wasn't a detriment to my game at all. It wasn't like great or not. Like, it was kind of neutral because Travis and I really hadn't talked any game thus far. But I didn't want Alyssa to go, so I was like, I want Travis to go because it just made sense. But you know what? It's funny because Frenchie that week, it was tough because we really did not get to voice our opinions that week. It was all Frenchie's decision. Even going into nominations, Ozza, Big D, and I did not know what the noms were going to be. And everybody came up to us. I distinctly remember this after the nomination ceremony and was like, did y'all know? And we were like, no, we had no damn idea. You know what I mean? Because he did not tell us anything about the backdoor plan. He was telling people not in our team the plan that were not us. And we were his team. And no, it was just crazy. But even that week too, I started saying way less to him because things that I would tell him, he would use against me in conversations with other people. Like, I remember the one time I was like, look, like Christian and Alyssa, they seem like they clicked right off the bat. They seem like they could be a duo moving forward in the game. And then he asks me in front of Christian and Alyssa if I told him that they could be a duo moving forward in the game. And I was like, Frenchie, this is not how the game works. I love you, but like, no. And then there was another thing too about Christian throwing out the idea of an alliance to people. Whitney had confided in me that Christian had entertained the idea of an alliance to her. And I told that to Frenchie, and then Frenchie almost tried using that against me too. And I said, I'm not saying another thing to you. Like, I'm not. My game's not going to be in jeopardy. And I covered myself great in both scenarios, but my game's not going to be in jeopardy because you don't know who said what to who.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But no, it was nuts.
Yeah. So he damaged himself greatly.
He did.
Obviously, as we can see looking back now, 2020 hindsight. But before so let's move into the next week. By the way, I want to say a live feed highlight of mine I so enjoyed watching. I think she was kind of most of the best of live feeds was Tiffany doing that impression of Frenchie doing the nomination ceremony.
That was so good.
That was hilarious. That was definitely one of those live feed highlights that blew up amongst all of the highlights. That was such a great moment.
That was so good. We could not keep our crap together that day.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was hilarious. Let's move now into next week. Obviously, Frenchie is probably the bullseye target for mostly anyone in the house outside of the Jokers. Kyland wins. You had a pretty good relationship with Kyland, though. I believe you guys were kind of, working together.
Yeah, no, I helped him on the block that week. I literally helped him navigate the block the entire week.
Yep. So you thought that you were good initially. Now, he did nominate you pre-veto, you alongside Frenchie. I know that you were obviously, and we'll talk about this in the subsequent weeks, but every time you were nominated, you were very upset. Like, especially with Kyland, I bet it hurt a lot because this was someone who you thought you were working with, and you felt like this is still very early in the game. You still have so many other options. Why are you choosing to nominate me, someone that really helped you the previous week? But did you feel like because you're alongside Frenchie on the block, like you really didn't have much to worry about? Like you were going to be okay?
I mean, absolutely. It's just, it's hard though, because obviously with me just knowing the game, when you're put on the block week 2, that gives everybody an excuse to keep doing it to you.
Right.
So I was more upset with the fact that I knew that could be my path than the fact that I was on the block in the first place. I knew that Frenchie was the target, and I also knew that Frenchie had told everybody that was competing in the veto, look, use the veto on Britini. Please use it on her. If I win it, I'm using it on her. Like she does not deserve to be up here next to me. She's done nothing wrong in this game. She's up here only because I'm up here next to her. But if for some reason, the reason why week 2 was so hard for me was because although I knew that I was the pawn technically, if Frenchie somehow pulled his way off the block and decided to go back on you, like if he won the veto and decided to go back on using it on me and use it on himself, I don't think Kyland would have been inclined to try and put another big threat up there. I think he would have been okay sending me out that week, because that entire week he had said all these things about, oh, Britini knows the game so well. Britini, like she's one of the smartest players in the game. We had a team meeting with him and he was like, there's two of the smartest game players in this house are in this room right now. And we were like, who are you talking about? And he was like, Britini and Frenchie. And we looked at him and I was like, Kyland, what in the hell are you talking about? Like, it's day 9. I didn't even understand it. I really think he would have been okay with me going that week. Not even. So
this really wasn't even a reciprocal, like, I scratch my back, you scratch your back. This wasn't really, like, I guess looking back now, a great like collaboration between you and Kyland, because it just seemed like Kyland would have been more than okay with getting you out, even though you helped him out the first week and getting him off the block. That's so interesting.
Well, no, that it's crazy too, because like even as the game progressed, like that was how our relationship was. Like I had consistently with what I said had proven what I was going to do. My actions were speaking those actions. Unfortunately for him, he did have a strike on my book because he put me on the block and kept me there for a week. Yeah, you know what I mean? And he said too, the reason why I was put up next to Frenchie was because of the fact that I was the only person that did not say Frenchie's name in the meetings. And I was like, but I'm not going to throw my teammate under the bus, Kyland. Right. Like that doesn't make any sense for me. Of course, I'm not very fond of how Frenchie ran his HOH week the last week, because I think it put us in a really not great position. But I'm not going to throw my teammate under the bus. Like I don't think you would be throwing your teammates under the bus either. So I'm being punished for something you wouldn't do as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Let's move into the following week. So Xavier's HOH. He's in the Kings. You're nominated again. This hits a little bit harder, I think, for you, because this is the second week in a row. It's Xavier. It's not Kyland, who you expected like him to come through for you and make you feel good that week. But you were alongside Brent,
I was
a competitive threat. So similar to being, on the block alongside Frenchie this past week, did being next to Brent kind of, allow you to sort of be relieved and be like, okay, I'm pretty sure Brent's the target this week. I think I should be okay.
I mean, absolutely. Xavier told me that it was either Oz or I going on the block that week. And I told him that would have made absolutely no sense. And at that point, just put me up and guarantee me that I'm not going home. And he did. But no, I mean, here's the thing though, even if you're the pawn that week, it doesn't mean that you don't feel the same emotions that the person that's the target feels. You feel the same stuff. because you're not safe until Julie Chen says the other person next to you is going home.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So even though I knew I was the pawn against Frenchie, and even though I knew I was the pawn against Brent, that didn't make the week easier. I mean, obviously, the more, it sounds weird. The more weeks that I was on the block, the easier I got to handle. It sounds really weird, but that was just how it was. Yeah. So my first week being on the block against Frenchie was the hardest. It really was, besides my backdoor week. And then the week with Xavier and Brent, I mean, that week was pretty easy. I won't lie. Just making sure that Brent didn't win the veto. Once he didn't win the veto, I was set.
Yeah.
You know, and then it just, yeah. But I mean, it doesn't make it easier when you're the pawn. You know, in your head, you're not going home, but you don't know. I mean, anything can happen in Big Brother, so you got to hold your breath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And luckily, Brent did not win veto, and he was sent home, and you were okay that week. Do you think, though, if Brent did win the veto, that there would have been a real chance for you leaving?
No, Xavier had guaranteed me that I was not going no matter what. Yeah. So I knew he was putting up someone next to me that would have gone home in my place.
Yeah. Now, I think they knew you've been through a lot these past couple of weeks. So coming into this fourth week with Christian being HOH, especially since I would think him being on Kings with Xavier.
Yeah.
Xavier probably would have been like, okay, let's give Britini a break here this week. Let's not, put her up. She's been through a lot, because the target was truly Whitney that week. So Whitney went home. Going into the week after that with Derek X on the block. Correct. You're nominated alongside Sarah Beth. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this is coming further into the game. There's fewer options left. How did you feel going into this nominations? Were you aware of sort of who the target was for this week? Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. So I voluntarily put myself up in week 5 because DX basically came up to me and was like, look, I need to put a joker next to a king. And I said, what is your plan? He said, well, I'm getting out of king. He said, it doesn't matter if it's the king I nominate next to you, or there could be a backdoor plan in mind. He said, but I'm getting out of king. I said, put me up on the block next to them. Because he called me up the first time, and then he brought me up a second time, and he goes, if I put you on the block as a pawn, who would you feel comfortable going against? I said, put me against any king. I said, if you are serious about trying to do a backdoor plan, sign me up, because I needed a game move at that point. At that point, I realized week 5 that I was playing my game on the block, and I needed to use the block as my weapon in order to get conversations and get into decision making. And I knew that volunteering myself for week 5 to go up against SB, which I didn't know was SB. I thought it was actually going to be Alyssa, but I didn't know that him and Alyssa had made a deal on the wall. I didn't know that until later on. But once I was up against SB, DX and I had talked about the plan. We executed it. It was done. So
yeah. And that's sort of funny to me how, you ended up winning veto. It was, your only comp win this season. But it was such a great comp win.
Yes.
So dramatic. I don't know if you saw the episode
for sure. You won. Oh my God, of course.
They made it so cinematic and so epic, you triumphing in that competition, which I love to see.
It felt very cinematic. It really did. Like playing it felt like a movie. It did.
But it's so interesting to me that this was sort of the 3 times you were nominated thus far, this was the one where you should have been the most relaxed, the most sort of like okay with it, because a king's going to go home anyway, whether it's Sarah Beth or Alyssa or Christian or whoever. But you ended up winning. So what what gave you that motivation to win this veto? And come out triumphant, even though you felt like you were going to be fine no matter what.
Yeah, no, and I was going to be fine. Like if Sarah Beth and I had stayed on the block together, I had Big D, Azza, Tiffany, Claire, and Hannah. Yeah. Who all, once I was nominated, rushed to the boat room and were like, all the 5 of us are keeping you. You're not going anywhere. So I knew I was staying. But the reason why I wanted the win, to be honest with you, Max, was because I wanted the first female win of a major comp. I knew that was up for grabs. And the more rounds that we were doing, I knew Alyssa was still in there. And I was like, it's going to come down to us. Like it's going to do it. But also I knew I could control the outcome of Kingdom of Carlotte. I could control that. I can do anything for a minute. I can do anything for 2 minutes. And so for me, it was just the mindset of do this for 2 minutes. This is a comp where you can strictly control the outcome of how many times your butt hits the block burner, or how many times your hips swivel around, or how many times you shake your head no. And I knew that I could control my own outcome, which is exactly why I won it. Because I was like, look, I can control this comp. It was one of the very few that I could.
It was made for you, Britini, that competition.
You know what other one was made for me? The balance beam comp that happened right after I got evicted. I was so upset, Max. I can't even tell you in words. I literally, DX gets to jury. We watched the comp. I'm like, this is my comp.
Yeah.
This is my comp. Yeah. I would have ran those beams.
Yeah. But let's not stay distracted though, because that is such a monumental achievement for you to
Oh
be
my
the
God, of course.
first female HOH
Yes.
or POV winner. We won't count the wild card winners. That doesn't count. But
no, absolutely.
But because with the wild card winners, you only competed against like a couple people, but you competed
Correct.
against 5 other people.
I did.
And for the main competitions, you know, the traditional ones, HOH and Veto, for you to be the first female this season, for it to have taken that long anyway, was so disappointing to see. But for you to, you know, have that achievement, it's so great. And that's something to definitely be proud of, for sure.
Oh my God. I will never forget to one of my favorite moments of the season, Max, was right after we played that comp and right after I had won the Denialator. I've never seen Big D and Ozza run faster in my life. But they sprinted down that spiral staircase, jumped on top of me, gave me the biggest Joker hug ever. Oh my gosh. Like it was a moment I will never forget. I wanted that win so badly at that point. And I had so many things to say no to at that point as well. Do I ever want to be on the block again? No. Do I ever want to sit through another 2-hour Kylan conversation? No. You know what I'm saying? Obviously we've talked things out since then, but like, no, I wanted that win so bad. And I wanted to prove myself as a competitor. And I know everybody had been calling me a competitor all season. So it was time that I finally owned it and won something in the house.
Yeah. And I can speak, I guess, from personal experience. Yes. You, Kylan,
I thought I
start recording. All right. So now we're going to get into this last week. Obviously, you know, the worst week for you. I won't beat around the bush. Your eviction week 6.
My eviction week.
But Kylan wins HOH, so
he does.
We feel good, right? At first,
we feel okay. Iffy.
We feel iffy.
We feel iffy right off the bat. Well, because deja vu. Hello.
Right.
Because
so
honestly,
past you thought could be prologue, so you didn't feel too good this week. Were you picking his brain? What was on his mind in terms of targets for that week?
Yeah, well, he had told me that I wasn't a target. He told me flat out. I had an 1.5-hour meeting with him that Thursday night, and he told me that I was not a target for him. I fully explained to him why I had picked Sarah Beth and Kylan first for Name That Croon. And I told Kylan, and this is genuinely true, it had nothing to do with Kylan, and it had everything to do with the person he was closely associated with. I said I needed him to beat her. That was the easiest explanation I had because I needed her out. Because I knew she was coming for me. That's all I knew. Because the person who asks me to throw a veto twice to them the week before is not going to be being like, hey, Brittany, I'm going to keep you safe. That's not going to happen. And so I felt okay, but he's telling me I'm not his target. He's telling me he wants to work with me until Final 5. And then he initiates this deal for me. And it's funny because like all the podcasts that I've listened to, no one's got it right yet. And I'm like, wait a second. Because he initiated the deal with me. Kylan was the one that brought up the idea of a deal to me, or I would have never suggested it. I'm not the HOH. I can't I'm not in a position to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not in a position to wager something because I have nothing to offer you and prove it, you know? And so he initiates this deal and he goes, well, what if you give me 2 weeks of safety? I said, okay, like, sure, I'll give you 2 weeks of safety. Why not? And I was honestly going to go through with it. And he goes, well, what do you want in return? I was like, Kylan, I get something in return. He goes, yeah. I said, keep me safe this week. I'll keep you safe the next 2. He said, that sounds great. We shook on it. That was about it. Besides like adding on the fact that we had to be like about our powers. If we had a power, we would tell the other person, that kind of a thing. But no, besides that, we shook on the deal and the deal was agreed upon. So I'm going into nominations. I feel great because I'm like, I'm not going home because Colin and I made this deal and I'm set. And so nominations go up, Big D and Claire are up, obviously not knowing about the cooka. I'm concerned about Big D. Then we play the veto competition and obviously they all try to throw it to me. Doesn't really go in my favor. And then obviously we all know what happens after we play OTEF, but
yeah. But what were your thoughts though with Claire and Big D on the block? Did you feel good at that point? Were you like, okay, well, obviously you don't feel good about Big D, but no. Did you talk to Kylan after those nominations to see like, okay, which one of these 2 do you want out? Was it Claire or?
Yeah, well, I mean, I had talked to him about it in terms of Big D and he said that he had not made a decision as to who he wanted to go home yet. But I mean, when I saw Claire and Big D, I was like, there has to be another option.
Yeah.
I was like, these are 2 pawns.
Right.
We haven't got to a target yet. So I'm like, I don't know who you're choosing to be this target of yours, but it certainly is not either one of them. But then Claire and Big D kept coming to me the entire week being like, Kylan's not telling us anything. He's not telling us anything. And I'm like, well, then maybe one of y'all are the targets. I don't know. But no, I never believed that they either one of them were a target to him.
So you were still sus even after those nominations. Something didn't smell right. Now
I was going to be sus until I wasn't on the block on Monday.
Exactly.
That was when I wasn't going to be sus anymore about the week, honestly, because he was really holding his cards very tight. And that week was the week of the boards and the Skittles and the Cheerios and whatever else he was having us do. No, it was a very odd week, and he was not giving answers to anybody, even his closest ally. So
yeah, so I remember bringing this up with you before, but let's fast forward to that moment now post veto where you're just like chilling on the couch outside in the backyard, and then Sarah Beth goes up to you. I think it was Sarah Beth, and she said, "Hey, I think you should talk to Kylan. I think he's thinking about putting you up." And just that visceral reaction you first felt when Sarah Beth told you that, and knowing that that was Kylan's plan to have through Sarah Beth to break that news to you and for him not to talk to you face to face. Can you just walk me through that moment? Because that's such a memorable moment of the season, how you felt just physically, you could tell on your body, like what's going on, and the way you just rushed to Kylan right after when SB sat down with you in the backyard. Walk me through that.
Well, I mean, I was absolutely shocked, number one, because Kylan just didn't come up to me and tell me himself, like, if you're gonna backdoor me, be a man and buck up and tell me. Like, don't send Sarah about to come and do the dirty work for you. Just come outside and be like, hey, Britini, I need to talk to you, and then break the news to me if you're going to break the news in that way. If you're not going to break the news, then let it be a true backdoor and I'll deal with it afterwards. But no, I mean, my heart just sunk because I was like, I don't know who I'm going up against. If I'm up against Big D, I certainly don't want to campaign against Big D, which I never campaigned against Big D. I didn't. I just campaigned for reasons why I should say. But I was devastated because in my head, I was like, I really was going to follow through with our deal. And you just don't care about it at all. And then he's calling me unpredictable. He's calling me this. He's calling me that. And I'm like, this has no substance. Like, this is bigger than now your words. And his words weren't making much sense to begin with to me. And I was just like, well, then there's no sense in talking to you. I'm going to be backdoored anyways. I was pissed, for lack of a better term. I was just pissed because I was like, I made a deal with you that you initiated your idea. And now I'm going up on the block for what reason? Like an HOH week of yours really cannot be complete without me being on the block for some reason. No, I will never forget how just infuriated I was in that moment. I was, because I was like, this could be the end of my game. Backdoors go home. Right. Unless something magical happens.
And every reason he's giving you just makes no sense and is not even a reason.
None at all.
You know, now looking back, obviously looking back, everything makes sense, but
correct.
It's really, I mean, he was never going to target SB. He was, you know, really good with DX. That was never going to happen. So it was really just you, Claire, or Alyssa. And I guess of those three, he felt like you were just the stronger threat in that regard, just coming fresh off that veto win, perhaps, was also a factor.
Could be that.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. So you got evicted that week. Okay, we won't harp on that.
Did you get evicted?
Did you think there was any chance, though? I mean, obviously you did not know about the cookout. So did you think there was any fighting chance for you to stay that week? Like, walk me through the campaigning.
Yeah, I mean, I had Claire and DX going around the house trying to campaign to everybody to try and keep me to stay. I knew my arguments were very valid, and I knew my arguments were working with most people. Even, I mean, I come to find out after the season happened that Hannah I thought that I was going to have to convince Hannah really hardcore. But besides the cookout being a thing, Hannah was really on my side. I was like, Brit's given a lot of good arguments to this. And even Tiffany was really hearing me through with my arguments. Alyssa almost flipped to go and vote for me on my week. You know what I'm saying? So like, I had the arguments to stay and they all made sense. You know, I came up with a 6-point plan for everybody except for SB, because SB was
I will say though, Claire and DX together in the house, you could see in the episodes they were sort of onto an alliance happening. And as a super fan, you kind of like that back and forth in terms of who has the power. So when you see Claire and DX sort of dance around the idea that maybe something's happening that's sort of unbeknownst to us, you were definitely like, yes, like cling on to that idea, like something is happening. But
of course.
They never acted on that.
Well, because once I left the house, it really dawned, a couple things dawned on me, and I know I talked about these in press interviews, was number one, the fact that Tiffany, who I was in 2 different alliances with, did not fight for me to stay in the slightest. And that it was Claire and DX who were fighting for me to stay. And like, I was close to DX, and we had just done the move in week 5, but like DX was hardcore rallying along with Claire for me to stay, but Tiffany wasn't. And so I remember saying in an interview, I think it was to the Winner Circle with Derek and Cody, I was like, she must be set up really well in the house. So she felt like she did not have to campaign for me at all and could let me go that easily. And then obviously knew Xavier was in a great place in the house. And then it did dawn on me of why did Big D not campaign at all and he stays?
Yeah.
Those things definitely dawned on me. I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but those thoughts were definitely going through my mind for sure.
Yeah. All right. Let's segue over to jury. I like to think of it where if you do end up going to jury, if that's your ultimate fate in Big Brother, it's great to be juror number 1 as opposed to like juror number 7, because you have the longest time in that house, which looks so luxurious. It looks like paradise to me on the the episodes. But also by being juror number 1, you have the place to yourself for a whole week. So that to me sounds, it must be so nice to just reflect by yourself and not have other house guests around you initially to sort of, digest everything that just happened. Did you think that there was that asset to be having that first week to yourself in the jury house? And what was that? What was that like?
Oh, for sure. First week in jury was one of my favorite weeks. I'm going to be really honest with you, because I was able to just relax and chill and start eating clean again, work out on the elliptical every day and get in a good sweat. Like I made my routine that week. Like jury it was no longer the jury house. It was Brit's house and everybody else is just living in it. You know what I'm saying? But no, I got to process the game very quickly and come to terms with that. I fought my hardest fight and it just wasn't enough. And that's okay. And I knew that was fine, but being alone in jury for the first week was wonderful. I just got to sit back and chill and I had everything to myself.
Yeah. And you felt that ownership, that it was your house. So every week when someone came, it's like, welcome to Britini's house. I was here first.
It's mine.
Yeah. That's funny. Well, I want to now sort of fast forward over to when Tiffany comes into the house, because she's obviously the first cookout member that comes into the jury house and breaks the news to you guys about the cookout forming. Was this, I know everyone seems sort of shocked, when she broke the news in the episode, but did it make total sense now? And was it something that you were even thinking about in the house? Like, of course, like, obviously, judging from the people that were left in the house versus the people who had been evicted thus far, did it make perfect sense that this was obviously happening before my eyes, but I was just so blind to it all?
Yeah, it was a little bit more blind to me because I went out at 11, but we did figure out, we called them the 6, but we found out about the 6 when SB came to jury. We put it all together. DX came into jury, obviously, with Kylan's goodbye message. So we put 4 of them together. We put Kylan, Azza, Tiffany, and Xavier together. I figured out the duos, but I got Oz's duo wrong. I said Oz's duo was Big D, and then Kylan with SB, Xavier with Alyssa, Tiffany with Claire. But we figured that out in jury. But then when SB came, Kylan had said to her the number 6. So we put the other 2 in there and we were like, there's never been an African-American winner of Big Brother before. And they're doing this for the mission. And it was an extremely respectable mission. And they duped us all. It was genius.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But we didn't know what Tiffany told us that we didn't know was who created the master plan, which was her.
Got it.
We didn't know who created it.
You knew that there was some sort of master plan with the whole duos, but you didn't know
for sure
who crafted that until Tiffany came into the house.
Yep. We knew about the alliance. We knew what their moves were. We knew what the motives were, but we did not know who created the master plan.
Wow.
Until and the roles of everybody in the cookout. We didn't know that either. We just knew that there was a 6 and that they were working to get themselves to 6. We knew that a plan of some sort had to be set in motion with the duos. We didn't know it was called the master plan, but we just knew it was a plan. But no, and then we also didn't know the order in which we were supposed to go out as opposed to what we ended up going out in the house.
Yeah, you knew there was a 6 before Tiffany came into the house, and you knew that that 6 was Tiffany, Hannah, Azza, Big D, Xavier, and Kylan. You knew that. Okay. Yep. Cool. Just because based on like assumptions or based on like actual evidence?
No, we knew it. We knew it.
Okay.
Because at that point, Kylan had dropped the fact that what if Kylan had dropped so many like leading questions to SB her week that we knew, and in Kylan's goodbye message to DX, he was like, look, there's a secret alliance that's been working together since day 1. No one's been evicted. So we put together the 4. SB came, said it was 6, and we knew who the 6 were.
Yeah, I feel like Kylan's long-windedness about him can be to his detriment. Sometimes there was even a segment on that of one of the shows of just him rambling. He loves to talk, Kylan.
Yes, he does. I thought
right.
I love to talk.
Oh,
Kylan's a dear, like Kylan and I, like, especially post show, we've been able to talk and we've been able to work a lot
that's
of things
great.
out. Cause like we're family at the end of the day. And I truly
Yeah,
do want to be civil with him. Civil and hopefully develop a friendship with him, because obviously in the game, you just say things you don't mean. I mean, at least you hopefully don't mean, and he didn't mean any of it, which was great. And he apologized to me for everything that he said. And that was awesome. So like love to Kylan, but like
yeah.
that he did talk. I thought I talked a lot in the house.
I want to fast forward to finale night. Obviously, I think one of the most memorable moments all like a finale night, but also all season, was that moment where you stood up from your chair and revealed to the entire house that you had autism, obviously making history as the first autistic house guest in the 20 plus years of Big Brother US.
Well, I was the second one, because Ian was first.
Which season?
14. Ian was
that's
the first.
right. That's right. We didn't know at the time. But yeah.
Correct. And then when he played 22, he came forward and said that he also has autism. But to my knowledge, I'm not sure if I am 100% correct on this, but to my knowledge, I think I'm the first female to play Big Brother USA.
Yeah, I forgot about that with Ian. Yeah, but the first time we never knew until when he played All Stars. So most likely first female.
Yeah.
and second of all time. What was that moment like, standing up on finale night, knowing not just that you were revealing this to your fellow house guests that you had been with all summer long, but that you were sharing this with America, millions watching, and now, you know, was that feeling that I'm now going to be a role model, I'm now going to be this, you know, figure that so many are going to look up to, saying that if she can do it, then I can too.
Yeah, no, for me, that moment was so special. Because even applying for the show, that was a discussion that we had with the producers. Was I was waiting until finale night to say it. And I wanted to do that for a couple different reasons. And obviously in my intro package, America knew that I was diagnosed with autism. So they had known the entire time.
That's right.
But I didn't want to know. I didn't want to tell the house guests, because I didn't want to use it as a crutch. I didn't want to use it as an excuse of any kind. I wanted to play the game as Britini. I didn't want to play the game with people associating me with the label that is part of me, but is not all of me. You know what I'm saying? And so for me too, especially when I have shared my diagnosis before in the past, I've had really positive experiences with sharing my story and really positive reactions. I've had also, unfortunately, the opposite. And so it comes twofold. So for me, with the house guests, I just wanted to play as me, and I wanted them to get to know me as me. And it was, that's why I've always said the money would have been great, but the purpose of me going on this show this season was so much bigger. And it was to break a barrier in neurodiversity that needed to be shattered. You know, when I remember standing up on that stage, I made my entire speech. I was practicing it the whole time in the dressing room. And I finally get up there, I say my piece, and I'm shaking. I'm so nervous because I'm like, I finally am going to share the most vulnerable part of myself with all of the house guests. And I really hope they receive it well, which they all obviously did.
I mean, the camera went on to the other house guests, and you could just see like the house guests that were sitting around you, just reaching out their hands, you know, connecting with you physically in that moment, because they knew how much of a vulnerable place you were in, and revealing something like that to everyone else. I remember Big D, I don't know if you saw it, but him getting emotional while sitting in those final two chairs, knowing that this is someone who I was super close with all summer, had no idea. And he understood the emotions that were just rushing through your head as you were giving that speech. And just for him to, you know, sort of swell up and have tears in his eyes. It was so emotional to see all that, not just the words that you were saying, but to see how this, you know, newfound family that you now have really connect with you and are all the more there for you. As you're saying that, it was so amazing to see.
Oh my gosh. I will never forget that moment for as long as I live. And then coming out of the house, and just, I've had so many moms, teens, kids, adults, grandmothers, grandfathers reach out to me and just either thank me or tell me that I am a role model for their children or themselves, or share their stories with me, or things like that. My mother, who was controlling my Facebook page, would call parents all the time throughout the season of parents who had children who were diagnosed with autism, or people who were going through autism and had been diagnosed as an adult and were dealing with it in this new period of their life, but I mean, the response has been everything and anything and more that I could have ever imagined, but in the most incredible way possible.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just so excited that we got to start this conversation in a positive light and show people that it's my disability does not define me. It doesn't define you, and you can achieve anything you set your mind to. I did it, and if I can do it, so can you.
Yeah. Yeah. And thinking about last year when Ian opened up about having autism, you did have that really heartfelt moment where he, shared it with some of the house guests in the house. But for you to sort of do something similar to that, but on finale night, when it attracts the most eyeballs, it really does give you the biggest platform on the finale night of Big Brother, where the most people watch all season long, to share that message, which is something amazing. And I love how you stood too. You wanted to stand up.
I wanted to stand. I was like, I didn't want to do it sitting. It just felt awkward. Yes. I had been sitting that whole night too. And I was like, can I stand? Thank you, Julie.
Was that planned, or was it all in the moment?
Nope. In the moment. In the moment. That. I really did not know if I was going to move. I was wearing sandals, thank God, but I was so nervous that I was like, am I actually going to stand up? I don't know. But then I did. And I was like, can I stand? Awesome. House guests. Here we go.
Yeah. So I'm almost done. Just have a couple last questions.
Yeah.
But I have to know, because I need to, feel comforted and know that this question is being answered, because you were the only Joker jury member, and having two Jokers in the final three. I have to know, how are you going to vote if it was Azah versus Big D in the final two? You have to tell
Azah versus Big D?
Yeah.
Was going to be Azah.
It was going to be Azah.
Yep.
Okay. Do you suspect that the vote would have been close? It wouldn't have been unanimous?
For an Azah versus Big D?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It probably would have been a 5-4 or 6-3.
Wow. Okay.
It would have been close. It would have depended, honestly, on who cut X. So if Azah had cut X, that may have got a couple more votes her way. But no, I mean, our jury was very some people were like Big D and some people were very much Azah. So in terms of them going up against each other, but no, I would have voted for Azah in that regard.
Mm-hmm. But it ended up obviously being X and Big D. And in that regard, it really didn't lend for that sense of suspense going into the last minutes of finale night, because you knew once it was, as long as X was in that final two, you knew it was going to be X.
Correct.
Especially over Big D, unanimous. It seemed like it was just this generally agreed upon sentiment from everyone in the house that, it's obviously X over Big D. He played the best game, won the most comps.
He played the best game, and he cut the number one person that could have threatened him in that chair. So absolutely. X played the overall best game. I judged it as a juror on 3 different principles. I judged it on strategy, your navigation through the game after the cookout, and your social game. And competitions too, 4.
Yes. And he ruled in all of those aspects, for sure.
He did very much.
And the rest of the jury obviously agreed. Well, I want to now touch on, for my last question, and thanks so much for your time and being so generous with your time. I know you've done tons of these talks, so I appreciate you chatting with me. Post finale, we talked about what you've been up to in the house, or in the real world, excuse me. But you haven't seen your new BB fam since, finale night.
That's very correct.
Since you, like I said, you booked it morning after and just needed to get back home. What are the plans? Are you going to be seeing them soon? When's this reunion happening?
I will actually be seeing them in 9 days.
Oh.
Yep, we are doing a Halloween weekend together in Tampa. So that is where we are all headed. I'm very, very excited for that as well. But no, we have Tampa. And then after Tampa is Big D's 30th birthday party in November. And then in December is Hearts of Reality.
Right.
I'm sorry. Oh my God. Where did I say?
Oh, no. I was just adding.
Yes,
Philly,
in
right?
Philly.
Okay.
I was like, did I say LA? I don't know.
No.
Big D's 30th in Philly. And then after that, we've got Hearts of Reality, which I know a bunch of us are going to for Give Kids the World Village in December as well. So that we got bing, bing, bing. And then I think we're all doing New Year's together too. I think that's a plan that's in the works or something like that. I don't know.
I love to hear that.
but we love each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the whole thing, is like, our cast is really a family, and we really went through something so unique with each other. And I think that just, I mean, with every cast, it brings you together in a way that nobody else truly understands, but it does. I mean, we're family at the end of the day.
And it seems like not every cast is like this cast in terms of the bonds that you have post
I've heard that a lot.
I know that, like, I know last year is a little bit different since it was All Stars, but it doesn't seem like that cast is particularly close postseason. I think you guys very much are in the vein of like BB21, where I know a lot of them are still sticking together, or BB20 in a way, where a few of them are really close together. Yeah. BB19, not so much. Obviously, that was so dramatic, and no one's really, I wouldn't think anyone's really talking to anyone in that season. But it seems like you guys are, gonna stay close long term, and that this really is a second family.
No, I would agree. I think we definitely will, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
That's great. And that you're all now lending your platforms and your voices, your newfound, voices, at this elevated level now that so many are following you and still keeping up with you postseason. And you're lending that to such a great cause with Hearts of Reality. Can you talk a little bit about that, and when's that happening?
So Hearts of Reality, Give Kids the World Village is happening December 9th through the 12th. And basically it's where a bunch of BB celebrities, Survivor celebrities, Amazing Race, Challenge, every reality show really has people that are coming. And we all get together to raise money for children who have chronic illnesses or very severe illnesses, kind of like Make-A-Wish, to have weekend long vacations at no cost to Disney World that weekend. And so we're all going to be together. There's a bunch of BB stuff being auctioned off. I know my comic is being auctioned off, which I'm very excited about. BB sent 4 comics. I believe it's mine, Brent's, Ozza's.
Oh.
And I think Xavier's was the last one they sent.
That's great.
To Hearts of Reality. So I'm very excited that mine is in the 4, because I may auction on my own, even though I know I'm getting it in my BB box. But no, I will probably auction for stuff there as well, because I want the stuff. I want the Survivor and the Challenge and the Amazing Race stuff. Why not? But no, it's an amazing event. We're going to have so much fun December 9th to the 12th. Anyone can join. It's for families. It's for fans of all the shows to come together and raise money for these kids.
That's so great to hear. That's awesome that you're using your newfound platform now for a cause like that. That's great. Yeah. Last question, because I have to know. I know a couple of your fellow new family members want to now dabble into the entertainment industry, see if they can do something here in LA.
Absolutely.
Is that something you honestly are considering, or are you just like, I am back to teaching, I am back to getting my master's? Like, this was a singular experience I wanted, did not want to, pursue anything more, in the industry, and now you're back to your regular life? Or is that something you're also considering?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a degree in theater performance, so acting is something that I already do. I would be open to going into the entertainment industry in LA in terms of film and TV and that kind of a thing. But at the moment right now, I think for this singular year, I'm going to stay in the falls, continue substitute teaching. If anything happens like that, I will take opportunities as they come. But right now, I think my golden rule at this point is the future's unwritten. So whatever I choose to do, whatever God's plan is will happen. And I am here for the ride, whatever that may be. And I will be happy with whatever that is.
I love to hear that.
But no, I think at this point, I'm open to everything. I'm not shutting any doors yet. But I do also miss teaching. So I'm very excited to be starting that up in the next couple weeks as well.
Sounds great. Well, that's such a great note to end on. This has been so great. I love hearing your insight into the season from your eyes. But yeah, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Oh my gosh, Britini. Max, thank you for letting me come on. You are incredible.
Okay. Well, I'll let you go. You were more than generous with your time.
Oh my gosh, don't even worry about it. For Max, for you, anything. For you, anything.
I'll remember that.
Got you.
Remember that. Okay. Bye, Britini. Thanks so much.
Bye, Max. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.